everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Money Maverick Show. This is Tim Turley, your host for today. We're coming to you from our studios in Salt Lake City, Utah. Today we're doing something a little bit different. I had the honor and privilege of being on someone else's podcast as a financial advisor, a financial planner. And this podcaster, this woman is amazing. Her name is Mary Crafts, and her podcast is called Crafting a Meaningful Life. And she at one time had the number one catering business in Utah. She catered to celebrities, especially the ones that would either live in or came to visit in places like Park City and Sundance and that kind of thing. She's got an amazing story, and she's very influential, especially with the single woman demographic, people that are maybe older, women starting businesses, that kind of a thing. And I happen to be episode 332, and it's the first time that she's ever had a financial planner, legitimate financial planner, on the show to talk about financial freedom and how to unlock it. So we had a lot of fun, and she was a great interviewer, and I hope you enjoyed this episode of with Mary Crafts and her podcast show, and I hope you enjoy it. And we'll come out soon in the next week or so with a regular interview on the Money Maverick. But I hope you enjoyed this. Have a wonderful day.
Welcome back to Crafting a Meaningful Life. I'm your host, Mary Crafts, and I get to come to you today to talk about something. Are you ready? That in 335 episodes, I've never talked about before on this podcast. I've talked about principles that I think relate to this, but I've never actually talked to you about financial planning and how to become financially independent, and how that following principles can really lead to that kind of financial freedom that we seek. So many times we talk about the gift of abundance and we want to live in that space, but there are principles that we really can follow that help us achieve that in a much better and a much quicker way. And so to that end, I have a guest today, Tim Turley. Welcome, Tim.
Great to be here, Mary.
And Tim, you are a financial expert. That's what you do in your life, right?
That's what I do, specifically a principles-based financial expert.
Okay, so I saw that, and let's talk about that. I want my listeners to understand right from the get-go of what really sets this particular podcast and any other presentations that they might hear about financial planning. It sets you apart because you start with what?
Start with principles. It always starts with a foundation of principles, and that's not done in traditional financial planning. It's just simply not done. People are typically, unfortunately, so they're kind of sold something. They're sold a product or a strategy.
Oh, yeah.
And they're not taught principles. And so that's what makes us really different.
So when you say principles, can you give me an idea of what you consider principles, life principles and values that are critical for financial planning?
Right. And just as a little precursor to that, money is one of the most important subjects in our entire lives, whether we want to admit it or not, right? And we invest a huge portion of our lives learning how to get a job or a career to earn money. And then we spend the rest of our life working our tails off, earning money. But we're never taught how money actually really works or how money could work for us. Our educational system is terrible at it. Our parents who we love and our grandparents, they were never taught, so it's not passed down. And so there's not a good system for it. And in fact, what you just asked, Mary, is really critical, because in the first meeting I have with clients, that's actually what I ask them. What's a principle mean to you in life? And people are not asked that question. They don't know how to answer it sometimes. And so I give them a hint. Well, I'm sure integrity is a principle you'd like to live by. You know, you want to be honest in your dealings with everybody and have a reputation of someone who treats people fairly. And then that opens the floodgate. So other principles could be loyalty, service to others, working hard, teaching other people, There's a lot of principles that we try to live our lives by in general. And then I'll follow up with, well, did you know there's also financial principles that are also true all the time that would probably be a good idea to learn and follow? So that's an excellent question that you asked.
Well, I think that it is important to start there with our principles, because that I know way too many people who seem to have drawn a line in their life, and they have their life and the principles that they live and that they will espouse right up until it comes to dealing with money. And then suddenly those principles are no longer of value to them. It doesn't matter how I treat my fellow man if I'm in business. It doesn't matter if I'm honest, well, in business, but in my home life, my personal life, I'm perfect. But over here, it's business. Anything works in business, right? We both know people like that. And I am thrilled to know that there are people out there that want to keep those principles based inside of us, no matter what the circumstances.
Yeah, in fact, if when it comes to money, at least, I mean, it's good for your personal life, but when it comes to money, if you don't have a foundation of principles, if that's not the foundation, you'll be swayed by every trend and every magazine article or radio show host that comes up with a new thing, and this is the hottest stock, and this is this and that, and you'll just be like grass in the wind, so to speak, because your foundation is not based on principles. But if your principles are your foundation, then it becomes much more predictable to base financial decisions on the principle, because that's your foundation. And if you follow true principles, you're not going to be swayed. You're going to stick to what works, and it's not going to happen overnight, but the principles will always win out, and that's in your favor.
I love that not being swayed. You can imagine, you're on LinkedIn, I'm on LinkedIn. How many people reach out to me on a daily basis that want to talk to me about financial planning, or that want to talk to me about there's a new tax strategy, and if you're not using this tax strategy, you're going to lose all of your money. And if you're not making 40% on your money, Mary, you need to come over here, because this is going to make you enough to make it, you can live to be 105 and still have money. And I'm not kidding you. It's like a barrage. And I think I get it somewhat because I'm in the public eye and because I am retired now. But when people are younger making those decisions in their life, they're also getting bombarded. I remember I used to belong to a business networking organization, and it was all CEOs, and half of the people in that organization were financial planners. Because they wanted to talk to us. And I was almost afraid every time I talk to somebody, they were going to say, I'm in financial planning. I'm like, oh, please, not again. So what sets you apart, Tim? I mean, you really are, say, you're principle-based, and you've explained those principles. But so many times with financial planners, I see that they are becoming very skilled at predicting what's happening in the market, and they're watching the trends and those things. Is that part of the skill set, or is that something different than what you do?
I'm glad you said that. 99% of the financial planning world pretends that they know how to predict the market, but it is literally impossible.
Yeah, just take a look at my portfolio. I'll tell you how impossible it is.
It's impossible. So traditional planning is based on having a crystal ball, and I don't have a functioning crystal ball, Mary. Do you?
Yeah,
I don't have one. No, I don't have one. So if you base your entire financial planning on something that's impossible to predict, which is what you need in the future and what the market's going to do, that's a faulty foundation from day one. So if you base a foundation on money, on trying to predict what your needs are going to be in the future, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with basing a financial plan on what you think you'll need in the future? What's the faulty premise of that?
You don't really know
you not even don't really know. You have zero idea. So you have no idea what you're going to need. You don't know what are things going to cost in the future. You don't know what your health is going to be like. You don't know if you're going to have to be taking care of your elderly parents or your children that need financial. You have no idea what the future is.
Can I just say that I retired in 2018? Does that give you anything about timing for me? I had no idea what was happening in 2020.
Yes, and then
bam, and the inflation that happened after that. Yeah, you have no idea.
So what I do that's different is we actually make financial planning predictable. We talk about becoming financially free. I don't even hardly use the word retirement. Retirement has nothing to do with money, by the way. If you look it up in the dictionary, retirement means to quit working. That's it.
Well, that's all I did. I retired from my career, but I didn't retire from life.
Yeah. Right. So financial freedom is based on having cash flow and passive income coming in that is enough to carry your lifestyle that you actually want to have. Not what you need, but what you want.
Yeah.
And so if you base it on principles, and here's what's different. The first principle is to pay yourself first. In financial planning, they actually teach you to do saving last. 61% of Americans right now don't even have $1,000 in emergency funds to take care of an unexpected expense. I mean, that is a terrible thing. And so we do it wrong. In high school, in financial literacy classes, which is kind of an oxymoron in what they actually teach high school kids, they teach them to put money in the stock market first. Now, I'm a licensed investment advisor, but why would you teach high school kids to effectively gamble in the stock market, which is completely unpredictable? And by the way, I've invested in the market. I'm not saying it's not good, but why would you teach a child to invest first, which is completely out of their control and they don't know how it works at all? In fact, most adults have no idea how the stock market works. Okay? Why not teach children how to pay themselves first, how to save? That's kind of boring, right? Saving is boring compared to investing. But if we don't pay ourselves first, and our principle is to save 15% or more of your gross income right out of the gate, because saving is what drives the ability to invest appropriately. In fact, I tell people to read this book called The Richest Man in Babylon. It's a very old book.
Oh, it's a great book. You bet.
Great book. But
all of my listeners, if you haven't read that, you need to jump on that. The Richest Man in Babylon. Yeah.
Right. So pay yourself first. And then most people are not prepared for unexpected life events.
Yeah.
We have no idea what's going to happen to us. Car accident, lawsuit, disabilities, health issues. Loss of job, new jobs. So we don't want unexpected life events to mess up our financial plan. So principle 2 is maximum protection. I mean, if you get in a car accident, can you call the car insurance company up after the accident and say, I want the best coverage you have?
No.
No, you can't do that. So what you think you need for car insurance has nothing to do with what you actually want. And the only time you can get what you want is before the car accident.
Can I interject something about automobile insurance, though? This is kind of one of my pet peeves. Okay, insurance companies are in the business because they make money at it. And so I think we should be insured without a doubt, medically, our homes, our autos, all those kind of things. Where I think people mess up is that then they want these huge, tiny deductibles. I only want a $250 deductible. I'm like, why? Well, if I get in an accident, I don't want to pay more than $250. That's all I have. Well, you can make up that deductible if you have $1,000 deductible in like 2 years. Do you know what I mean? Easily, you should be taking the highest deductible and let them carry the big burden that you cannot cover. But you can take the risk as much as they can by what? Having personal savings. So if you get in a car accident and you have $1,000 deductible, that $1,000 is already in your savings Just put the difference in the insurance between with a $250 deductible and a $1,000 deductible in the bank every year, and you'll see how quickly you can accumulate that.
Exactly. It's the same with medical insurance, by the way, too. It's the exact same principle.
Exact same principle. Those
Right.
deductibles are where they're making their money.
That's right. And people have never been asked these questions. So we dive deep into that. Like, what would happen if one of these life events happen? Are you prepared? And most people are not. So that's principle 2. And in fact, principle 4 you just alluded to, Mary, is to have 6 months to 1 year of income stored up in safe, guaranteed places for that reason that you just brought up.
Yeah.
I mean, how would people feel right now if they had a year's worth of their salary saved up in a safe place?
Right?
They would feel great. They have emergencies protected. And then once you built up your savings anymore, now you could take advantage of opportunities in the investment world. And here's what's different about me. I don't tell people where to invest their money. I don't care where they invest their money, but I do want them to follow the principles. When it comes to investing, you should invest in what you know or you can learn. Okay. You should invest in what you can control.
I guess that's why I don't invest in crypto, because I know nothing about it.
Well, let me ask you about...
Not that some people shouldn't. They have time to learn about it and they know all about it. Not me. I know nothing.
Well, let me ask you about the stock market.
Okay.
On a scale from 1 to 10, 10, you're an expert in the stock market in Wall Street. You know all the mutual funds. You know all the companies. You know who the money manager in New York City is. You know the balance sheets and the K1 statements of every company that you're investing in your stock portfolio. That's a 10. And 1 is you really have no idea how it works and you're blindly giving your money to a stockbroker. Where are you at? Where are most people at?
I'm a 2.
Yeah, some people say, hey, Tim, can I do a -1?
I'm a 2. I'm not a ninny, and I do watch and look. But yes, I think that you have hit the nail on the head, Tim, of why having a trusted financial fiduciary is so critical to you, that we don't know all those things. Just like when, I was a caterer. People didn't know how to cater their events. They didn't know how to cook for, 400 people. They didn't know what equipment and how to bring it all. So they searched out someone they could trust that did know how to do it, that would show up at the right time on the right day and make it all happen for them. It's the same reason how we pick our financial planner. Someone we trust, someone that's going to show up and be there when the time is right, and someone that knows what they're doing. There are a lot of caterers out there who say they can do it, but they can't. They don't know what they're doing. And so to find someone who's so well educated that you can put your trust in them.
Right. And if you catered an event and it was the first time you'd ever made that food before, and I mean, that wouldn't work out real well. It was the first time you ever made the food that the people ate. My wife was a caterer for many years, so you and her are kindred spirits. But it's the same with money. I would bet you that over 90% of financial advisors don't even practice what they preach.
Really?
And they don't actually use the products or strategies they do with people. In fact, 99% of financial planners, they're not really planners. They focus on assets under management. In other words, they don't create wealth for people. They only work with people that have already created wealth. Most financial planners won't work with someone unless you can usually have a couple $100,000.
You're absolutely right. And they say that right in their ads. If you've saved $250,000, call me.
Right.
But if you haven't, don't call me because I'm not interested.
So I teach I teach 20-year-olds that don't have any money. So most financial planners do not help create wealth, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
So are they really planning, or are they just making fees off
managing?
Managing for people that have already created some level of success.
Right.
And I mean, by the way, the principles that I teach work with a 18-year-old that is just making $30,000 a year, or a 40-year-old or 50-year-old that makes $5 million a year. It's the exact same principles because principles are true.
Right. I love that. Absolutely. Tim, one of the reasons that I wanted to have you on, this is now relating to my audience and to me personally. I was a woman. I had graduated from college. I was not a financial ninny. I I knew the fallacy of debt. I lived by the principle that don't ever charge what you can't pay off at the end. I want my money to work for me. I don't want to work my money to work for somebody else. I didn't want to pay interest. I've never paid interest except on items that are appreciating in value. For example, a home. If your home is appreciating faster than what your interest rate is eating it up, then it becomes a good investment. But same like buying cars, they're going to depreciate way faster than before you can pay them off. So I was not a ninny. However, being true to the culture, as I would make money, I would give it to my husband to invest, to handle the financial part because I was a woman. And that's not women's work. And then when I divorced that individual at age 55, so now you're talking the majority of my work life, I found out that the things he had invested in were never going to see a positive return. And the rest of it, he'd put someplace I never found. And so I want you to address the idea and the concept of then, what about women and how smart should they be? And how much should they be involved in these decisions? And do they hold things in their own names? Or is it always a joint? Or how do you see that whole thing?
I got some chills when you were when you were talking about that, your story, because I'm very passionate about that. Except in very rare circumstances, I will not work with a couple unless both spouses are attending the meetings.
Ah,
And I work with clients in all 50 states, but in some cultures, the husband is the main breadwinner and the wife is actually doing all the hard work, way harder than the husband. But sometimes women think that they don't need to know about that stuff. It couldn't be further from the truth. Um, in fact, I will ask a very emotional question of the wife sometimes when I'm first talking to them, and I will ask the wife, who's the most important person in your life? And what do you think the wife's first response is, naturally? Yeah,
my
the
husband.
husband or my
Yeah.
kids.
Or my
And
kids.
I look at them and I say, can I disagree with you respectfully? And they say, I guess. I said, I would like to submit to you that you are the most important person in your life, not
I
anybody
love you,
else.
Tim, just so you know. Applause, applause. That's what I'm trying to teach every week here.
Yes. And I said, how could you possibly serve other people unless you take care of yourself? And the wives that are in a traditional kind of, mindset, they actually tear up and many will start crying. And they have got to know this stuff. It doesn't matter if the husband takes care of the finances. What if, okay, your story, Mary, is perfect. So what if a wife lets her husband take care of all the finances, and what if the husband dies
Yeah.
early
Or
What
becomes
is
disabled.
or becomes
Or
disabled
they're divorced. I mean, any
or
number of
divorced?
things.
Right.
Yeah.
The other spouse, especially the woman, it is so critical for them to understand this. And by the way, the woman that I work with intuitively actually understand these financial principles better than the men do.
Really? Tell me about that. I've never even thought about it, that there's
They
a different gender in understanding.
they understand, and maybe it goes back to our DNA, cave that says cavemen and cavewoman, right? The DNA is the man has to go out and hunt and kill every single day to support the family.
Yeah.
Maybe it's still in our DNA, but in today's society, women always intuitively understand the importance of saving and having emergency funds and saving up for a rainy day and for unexpected life events and protecting themselves like I said, does anyone know if they're going to be disabled tomorrow or die early tomorrow or lose their job tomorrow? No one knows that.
Unfortunately, no. We don't know that. Well, or fortunately, we don't know that.
But the women I work with understand that much more than the men. I'm not a psychologist, but they understand that. So even if the wife doesn't and is not involved in the daily managing of the personal finances, they've got to understand how the principles work and where the money is and how much is being saved and where it's going. And they should be involved in that because, number one, they tend to understand the principles better than men do. I don't know why, but they do. And again, if they're not involved in managing the day-to-day finances, they need to know at least the basics of where the money is and the decisions that are being made and how the principles work. Because divorce or disability or losing the husband early, any one of those three things that you just alluded to, they need to know what's going on, at least on a basic level. It's so important. I'm glad you brought that up.
There's so many things because women live longer than men. I mean, you might live and your guy has a heart attack at age 72 and you've got 30 more years on your life. And where is the money buried? And then I talk to women who are in a different genre. They're young. They're in abusive marriages. They want to get out, but the number one reason they're not getting her out is because they don't know how they would take care of themselves. They don't know what the finances are. How much savings do they have? They have no idea. And when I tell them that we live in a community property state and that half is theirs, they're like, well, half of what? I'm like, okay, right. Let's go back to square one. Okay.
Well, and back to your question, I think it's good. I think it's healthy to have joint ownership of financial accounts.
Sure.
However, because of what you just said, what if, and I was a rehabilitation therapist in California for many years. I worked with the criminally insane, believe it or not, a long time ago. And so I have some of that mental health background and how money is emotional as well, very emotional. So what if a young woman is in an abusive relationship? It might be a good idea on the side for the wife that's in maybe not too sure about the healthy future of her relationship. Start a business, start a side hustle, do something on the side, be a caterer on the side, Etsy, whatever it is. Start a business and open up your own financial bank account, and that's your little fund, and your savings. Because yes, we'd like to all be married for the rest of our lives, but divorce is at a 50% clip.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's anything wrong with a woman having her own career with her own LLC, because I teach people how to set up their LLCs correctly, when they're making a certain amount of money. But I think it's a good thing for a spouse to have a side hustle. Maybe not the breadwinning spouse, but have a side hustle, have a business. It also does something for your self-esteem when you're earning your own money.
Absolutely. Yeah. And when you understand where everyone's joint money is. So I don't want to be Miss Doomsday and say that under these horrible circumstances, and if something's horrible going to happen to you, and then that's why you should learn about these financial things. Even in the best of times, you should know. I can think of, it's a good thing that my mother passed before my father, or she would have been clueless. Where is the money buried? Where are all the documents? What life insurance do we have? I mean, fortunately, he lived on and he knew all those things, but it could have been really dramatic for her.
And it's usually the other way around.
Yes, and it's usually the other way around.
Right, and that's what, like you said, that's where the problems start. So I also teach clients how to set up their estate planning documents, just simple wills and trust. Everybody, most
Yeah.
everybody should have a living will and a family trust of some type. And the both the husband and the wife should know about those things together. They
Yeah.
should they should know who's the beneficiaries and who's going to be our power of attorney if we're disabled. There's so it's really important for both spouses, no matter who is bringing the revenues in from their job, both of them should know what's going on. I agree with you wholeheartedly.
Tim, in wanting to keep within our time frame, we have about 5 minutes left. So I would like you to share with my listeners what you feel are the most important things that you want to share with listeners about the services you offer, but more than that, about the value of being aware of the path you're on. I think that's, for me, one of the biggest problems I see is they don't even know, and so they stick the head in the sand. I don't know what I'm doing financially. I don't know how I'm going to live after I retire. I have no idea. It'll just happen, like there's Social Security, right? And even at my age, at 70, I know I'm not going to have Social Security until I die, okay?
Yeah, by the way, if you're 70, you need to take Social Security now because it doesn't get any better. So take it right
No,
now.
I did. I took it
Okay.
actually when the year after COVID, because my children were buying the business from me, and I wanted to take the burden of those payments off of them for that year and a half when things were so dark. So I took my Social Security. I took it at age 67, and no regrets. It helped them stay on their feet so they could continue to make payments to me.
Oh, good. Yeah, by the way, I'm sure you hear this all the time. There's no way you're 70, but that's another podcast. Okay. So
Thank you.
um, what I do that's different, and by the way, I don't charge a fee. There's ways I potentially get compensated, but I don't charge a fee like a lot of financial planners do. I think it's a conflict of interest, and
Yeah.
I explain to people why. What I do differently is I take people through a process because learning is a process. It's not meeting once or twice and being sold a product or a strategy. Learning is a process. So I take people through a process where I teach them how money works and what money is and what the rules of the financial institutions are. By the way, the financial institutions do the opposite of what they teach us to do. And we
Explain.
talk about, well, financial institutions, they want our money, and how often do they want our money?
Always.
All the time. And how long do they want us to leave our money with them?
Forever.
Right? Sandlot movie, forever, right? And then how often do they want to give the money back to us so we can use it?
Never.
Never. Those are the four rules of all financial institutions. But what's interesting is they do the opposite of that themselves. They don't follow those rules. They create wealth and they reinvest and they take our money and they invest it all the time. That's not what they tell. In fact, the reason why they tell us to follow those four rules is so that they can invest and create wealth for themselves. So what I teach people to do is to do what the financial institutions do, not what they tell us to do. And
Okay.
that's creating financial freedom, not just hoping that the crystal ball will work out and the retirement will work out. When's the worst time to find out, Mary, that the financial plan that was set up for you didn't work out?
Either when you're on your own. Well, I'd say when you're on. For me, it was when I realized I was divorced and I had zero nest egg at age 55.
Right.
Yeah.
So that situation, and also when you stop working.
Yeah.
That's the worst time to find out that it didn't work out. So financial freedom is the goal. Financial freedom is predictable and it's a better, more clear roadmap. And that's what I teach people to do is we customize these principles to what people want, not what they need, because you can't predict needs. And it's a wonderful process. It's not for everybody, but it's definitely life-changing if people are willing to put the work in to learn.
So a lot of people think that it's too early for them to start this kind of financial planning. I have too many things I want to do. A lot of people think, I don't think I have enough money to start a financial plan. I'm 40, but I'm still not I only have enough for my basic needs. I'll wait till I'm 50. I mean, what is the best time? And what about those people who think I don't really have money to invest?
The best time is if you're 16 years old and you need to be taught how to save money.
Thank you.
It does, the age is irrelevant to when you start learning principles. Even if you just saved and protected yourself a little bit, the investing can come when you're prepared, but it doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter how much money. If you're trying to live within your means, if we don't pay ourselves first, we'll rely on Social Security, which is going to be bankrupt in 10 years. And so they're going to keep raising taxes. That's not something we want to rely on. So it doesn't matter who you are, how much you make, or how start where you're at right now.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's some great advice, Tim, and I so appreciate you being with us today and enlightening us on some of the things that are out there that we can take advantage of, and the difference between a financial planner and principle-based planning, which is so true. People that don't rely upon predictions, but rely upon principles. That, just is my life. And that's why we're on here today, Tim, because I felt that there was some real connection on an area other than just pen to paper, but emotional and mental, and a really almost spiritual connection between those principles and how we run our life, of which finance is a huge piece. We don't get to this part of our life and then say, oh, I'm going to choose something different now. I'm not going to rely on those same principles that worked for me over here. Tim, I've also included at the end of this podcast your website and your LinkedIn profile so people can find you and get in touch with you and continue this conversation of creating wealth in all sorts of ways for all sorts of people. Thanks for being with us, Tim.